The mashed potatoes were still steaming when my wife Olivia decided to detonate our marriage like a hand grenade at Sunday dinner. "Your family is toxic, Michael. I want a divorce." The words hung in the air above my parents' mahogany dining table, like smoke from a house fire. My father's fork froze halfway to his mouth, a piece of roast beef dangling precariously. My mother's wine glass trembled in her manicured fingers. Even the grandfather clock in the corner seemed to pause, as if time itself needed a moment to process what had just happened. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I set down my knife with deliberate precision, the way I'd learned to handle volatile situations during my 15 years as a forensic accountant. Numbers don't lie, but people? People lie constantly. And right now, my wife of 12 years was lying through her perfectly veneered teeth. "Well," I said, dabbing my mouth with the linen napkin, "there goes dessert, and possibly my will to live." Olivia's green eyes flashed with the kind of fury I'd seen her reserve for difficult real estate clients. She was stunning even when angry, all sharp cheekbones and glossy auburn hair that she spent more on maintaining than most people earned in a month. But beauty, I'd learned, was just another form of accounting. Assets and liabilities. And lately, Olivia had become a very expensive liability. "Don't you dare make jokes, Michael. I'm serious. I can't take another minute of your family's passive-aggressive comments about my career, my friends, my choices." My mother finally found her voice. "Olivia, dear, we've never said anything about—" "Haven't you?" Olivia's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. The constant questions about when we're having children, the snide remarks about my work schedule, the way you look at me like I'm some gold digger who trapped your precious son. My father cleared his throat, the way he did when he was about to deliver bad news to a client at his law firm. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No." Olivia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I'm done with private discussions. I'm done with this family. I'm done with this marriage." That's when I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I pulled out my phone and dialed my lawyer's number. On speaker. "Peterson residence," I said when Jake Morrison answered. "We need those divorce papers we discussed last month. Can you have them ready by Monday morning?" The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the ice settling in my father's whiskey glass. Olivia's face went through several interesting color changes, red to white, to a peculiar shade of green that almost matched her eyes. "Michael," Jake's voice crackled through the phone. "Are you sure about this? It's Sunday evening and—" "Monday morning, Jake. Bill me for the rush job." I ended the call and looked up at my wife, who was staring at me like I'd just pulled a rabbit out of a hat, or maybe like the rabbit had just pulled a gun. "You had divorce papers drawn up?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "A month ago. Right after I found your second phone." The color drained from her face completely now. My parents exchanged glances, but I kept my eyes locked on Olivia. In my line of work, you learn to watch for tells, the little signs that someone is hiding something. Olivia had been practically broadcasting hers for weeks. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The iPhone in your Hermes bag. The one with Gav saved with a heart emoji. The one with text messages about last night at the club and when can we be together properly." My mother gasped. My father's jaw tightened in the way that meant someone was about to get sued into oblivion. But Olivia did something I didn't expect. She smiled. "You went through my private things." "Your private things were in our shared bedroom, on our shared nightstand, buzzing with notifications at 3 a.m. You have no right." "I have every right. I'm your husband. Or was, until about 5 minutes ago." I stood up, smoothing my shirt with the same calm precision I used when closing a particularly satisfying audit. Jake will contact you through your attorney. I assume you have one? Or will Gavin Cross be handling your legal affairs along with everything else? The mention of Gavin's full name hit her like a physical blow. Her hand went to her throat, fingers finding the diamond necklace I'd given her for our 10th anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. How do you know about Gavin? I'm a forensic accountant, Olivia. I find hidden assets for a living. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when my own wife started hiding hers? My father cleared his throat again. Perhaps we should let you two work this out privately. No need, Dad. Olivia was just leaving. Weren't you, dear? She grabbed her purse from the sideboard, fingers fumbling with the clasp. That's when I noticed something interesting. Gavin's BMW key fob was missing from the side pocket where she usually kept it. I'd palmed it earlier when she'd gone to the bathroom, a little insurance policy for later. This isn't over, Michael. Actually, it is. You wanted a divorce? Congratulations. You're getting one. Along with a very thorough financial audit of our shared assets, a detailed investigation of your recent activities, and a front-row seat to what happens when you underestimate someone who knows exactly where all the bodies are buried. She paused at the doorway, her hand on the frame. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, might try to salvage something from the wreckage. Instead, she lifted her chin with the defiance I'd once found attractive. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. After she left, the house felt different, lighter somehow. My parents sat in stunned silence while I helped myself to another serving of roast beef. Well, my mother finally said, that was unexpected. Not really. I've been expecting this conversation for months. I just didn't think she'd have it here. My father leaned back in his chair, studying me with the shrewd eyes that had made him one of Maine's most successful attorneys. You seem remarkably calm for someone whose marriage just imploded. That's because it imploded weeks ago. Tonight was just the official announcement. I took a bite of beef, chewing thoughtfully. Besides, Olivia made one crucial mistake. She assumed I'd be devastated, that I'd beg her to stay, promise to change, maybe even agree to overlook her affair. And you won't? I smiled, the kind of smile I usually reserved for clients who tried to hide assets in offshore accounts. Dad, you taught me that the best revenge is living well. But you also taught me that sometimes living well requires a little creative accounting. My mother frowned. Michael, you're not going to do anything illegal, are you? Illegal? Of course not. But unethical? Well, that depends on your perspective. I finished my dinner while my parents processed this information. Outside, I could hear Olivia's car struggling to start. Her BMW was getting old, and she'd been after me to buy her a new one. Another expense I wouldn't have to worry about anymore. There's something else, I said, setting down my fork. Olivia's affair isn't just personal. Gavin Cross is married to Rebecca Cross, who happens to be the daughter of Senator Cross, the same Senator Cross who's been pushing for stricter regulations on real estate transactions. My father's eyebrows rose. That's quite a coincidence. In my experience, there are no coincidences, only patterns people haven't recognized yet. I pulled out my phone again, this time scrolling through my contacts until I found the number I wanted. Dylan Murphy, ex-cop turned private investigator, and the only person I trusted to help me untangle the mess my marriage had become. Dylan, it's Michael Peterson. I need a favor. A big one. How big? Dylan's gravelly voice carried the weight of too many cigarettes and too much bourbon, but his mind was sharp as a razor. Remember that conversation we had about what I'd do if I ever caught Olivia cheating? Yeah. Well, hypothetically speaking, what would be the best way to document an ongoing extramarital affair without violating any privacy laws? Dylan was quiet for a long moment. Hypothetically. I'd say the hypothetical husband should meet me at Murphy's Diner tomorrow morning, 8 sharp, and he should bring his checkbook. Consider it done. After I hung up, my parents were staring at me with expressions I couldn't quite read. Concern, admiration, fear. "Michael," my mother said carefully, "what exactly are you planning?" I stood up, straightening my tie. "I'm planning to give Olivia exactly what she asked for, a divorce, but I'm also planning to make sure she understands the true cost of betrayal." "And Gavin?" My smile widened. "Gavin Cross is about to learn that there's a big difference between being entitled and being untouchable, and I'm going to teach him that lesson very, very thoroughly." As I walked toward the door, my father called after me. "Son, be careful. Revenge has a way of consuming the people who pursue it." I paused, considering his words. "You're right, Dad, but so does betrayal, and between the two, I'd rather be the one holding the matches." Murphy's Diner hadn't changed in 20 years. Same cracked vinyl booths, same coffee that could strip paint, same waitress who called everyone Hon and meant it. Dylan was already there when I arrived, hunched over a cup of black coffee and a plate of eggs that had seen better days. "You look like hell," he said without looking up. "Thanks. You're a real confidence booster." I slid into the booth across from him, noting the manila folder beside his elbow. Dylan never wasted time, which was one of the many reasons I'd kept him on retainer for the past 5 years. In my business, you never knew when you'd need someone who understood the art of finding things people didn't want found. "So," he said, finally meeting my eyes, "your wife's cheating with Gavin Cross." "Among other things." "What other things?" I pulled out my own folder, spreading several documents across the sticky table. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts, the paper trail of a marriage in freefall. 3 months ago, Olivia opened a separate savings account. She's been funneling money from our joint checking, small amounts, nothing that would trigger automatic alerts, but consistent. 500 here, 1,000 there. Dylan whistled low. "How much total?" $37,462.18. "You counted the cents?" "I always count the cents. That's where people hide their mistakes." Dylan flipped through the statements, his trained eye catching details that would escape most people. "She's good. These withdrawals look like normal expenses. Grocery stores, gas stations, department stores. Except I have receipts for our actual expenses. She's been getting cash back on every transaction, then depositing it into the secret account. Smart girl. Smart enough to think I wouldn't notice, not smart enough to realize I notice everything." The waitress appeared with coffee for me and a refill for Dylan. Her name tag read Dolores, and she had the kind of weathered face that suggested she'd seen every type of human drama play out in these booths. "You boys plotting something?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Just a little financial reorganization," I said. "Uh-huh. Well, try not to burn down the town while you're at it." After she left, Dylan opened his folder. "I did some preliminary work after your call. Gavin Cross, 38, married to Rebecca Cross for 6 years, no children. He runs a tech investment firm downtown, specializes in startup funding. Clean record, no obvious vices except an expensive taste in cars and women. Define expensive. His BMW is worth more than most people's houses, and based on the hotel receipts I found, he's been spending about $3,000 a month on his affair with your wife." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Hotel receipts? The Regency downtown, every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 months, always the same suite, always charged to a corporate card from Cross Investments. He's using company money to fund his affair? Gets better. The corporate card is tied to an account that's supposed to be for client entertainment. Gavin's been billing his adultery as a business expense. I leaned back in the booth, processing this information. In my line of work, I'd seen every type of financial impropriety imaginable, but this was particularly brazen and particularly stupid. "There's more," Dylan continued. Your wife's been meeting him at other locations, too. His lake house, the country club, even her real estate office after hours. Evidence? Photos, timestamps, witness statements. Nothing illegal about how I obtained them, if that's what you're worried about. I wasn't worried about legality. I was worried about effectiveness. What about his wife? Rebecca Cross? Interesting woman. Comes from money, obviously, but she's not the typical senator's daughter. Has a master's in social work, runs a non-profit for domestic violence survivors. By all accounts, she's genuinely decent. Which means she doesn't deserve what her husband is putting her through. Probably not. Question is, what do you want to do about it? I sipped my coffee, thinking. The smart move would be to take the evidence to my lawyer, file for divorce, and walk away with my dignity and half the assets. The satisfying move would be something else entirely. I want to destroy them, I said finally. Not physically, not illegally, but completely. I want Olivia to lose everything that matters to her, her reputation, her career, her social standing. And I want Gavin to understand that actions have consequences. Dylan nodded slowly. That's a tall order, and it's going to cost you. How much? For what you're talking about? 20 grand, plus expenses. I didn't hesitate. Done. You might want to hear the plan first. I trust you. Dylan smiled, and for the first time since Olivia's dinner announcement, I felt something approaching optimism. All right then, here's what we're going to do. He spread out a timeline on the table, marked with dates and locations. Phase 1 is financial. You're going to use your access to the joint accounts to protect your assets and limit her liquidity. Nothing illegal. You have every right to manage your own money. But by the time you're done, Olivia's going to find herself very cash poor very quickly. She'll just use credit cards. Not if the cards are tied to accounts that suddenly have spending limits, and not if those limits are set by the primary account holder. I smiled. Which is me. Exactly. Phase 2 is social. Olivia's career depends on her reputation in the community. Real estate is all about trust and relationships. If people start questioning her integrity, her client base evaporates. Right. And phase 3 is personal. Gavin Cross thinks he's untouchable because of his family connections. We're going to prove him wrong. How? Dylan's smile turned predatory. By making sure his wife finds out about the affair in the most public, embarrassing way possible. And by making sure the IRS gets very interested in how Cross Investments categorizes its business expenses. I felt a surge of satisfaction so intense, it was almost physical. When do we start? We already have. While you were having your family dinner last night, I was installing some very sophisticated surveillance equipment in your house, with your permission, of course. I frowned. I didn't give you permission. You gave me a key 3 years ago when you hired me to investigate that insurance fraud case. I still have it. And technically, it's your house, so you can record whatever you want in it. What kind of surveillance? Audio only. Hidden in places Olivia would never think to look. If she brings Gavin to the house, or if she makes any incriminating phone calls, we'll have everything. That seems risky. Everything we're about to do is risky, but it's also legal. And more importantly, it's justified. Your wife betrayed you, Michael. She's been stealing from you, lying to you, and planning to divorce you while maximizing her financial gain. You have every right to protect yourself. He was right, of course, but there was something else driving me, something darker than simple self-protection. I wanted Olivia and Gavin to suffer the way I'd suffered when I found that second phone. I wanted them to experience the humiliation of having their secrets exposed, their lies unraveled, their carefully constructed lives torn apart. There's one more thing, I said. I want to make sure Rebecca Cross knows the truth before this gets ugly. She deserves better than being blindsided. Dylan nodded approvingly. I was hoping you'd say that. It shows you're not completely consumed by revenge. Just mostly consumed. That's all we need. I finished my coffee and stood to leave, but Dylan grabbed my arm. Michael? Once we start this, there's no going back. Olivia's going to fight dirty, and Gavin's going to use every connection he has to try to destroy you. Are you sure you're ready for that? I thought about Olivia's smile when she'd thrown my marriage away at my parents' dinner table. I thought about the months of lies, the secret phone, the stolen money. I thought about Gavin Cross using his company's funds to pay for hotel rooms where he could betray his wife and destroy my marriage. I've been ready for weeks, I said. I just didn't know it yet. As I walked to my car, I felt lighter than I had in months. For the first time since discovering Olivia's affair, I wasn't reacting to her choices. I was making my own. And I was very good at making choices that other people regretted. My phone buzzed with a text message. Olivia. We need to talk. Can you meet me at the house this afternoon? I typed back quickly. Of course. I'll be there at 3. Then I called Dylan. The surveillance equipment you installed, is it active? As of this morning. Good, because I think we're about to get our first recording. Olivia was waiting in our living room when I arrived, perched on the edge of the white leather sofa like a cat ready to pounce. She'd changed from her dinner outfit into something more strategic, a black dress that hugged her curves and emphasized her legs, paired with the diamond earrings I'd bought her for our anniversary. She was dressed for seduction, which meant she was desperate. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice softer than it had been the night before. I know last night was difficult. That's one word for it. I sat down in the armchair across from her, maintaining careful distance. What did you want to discuss? I think we both said things we didn't mean. I was angry about your parents, and you were hurt, but that doesn't mean we have to throw away 12 years of marriage. I studied her face, looking for tells. The slight tightness around her eyes suggested she hadn't slept well. Her hands were perfectly still, which meant she was working hard to control them. And she kept glancing toward the window as if expecting someone. You want to reconcile? I want to try, if you're willing to work on some of the issues that led us here. Issues like your affair with Gavin Cross? She flinched but recovered quickly. I don't know what you think you saw. I saw hotel receipts, Olivia. I saw text messages. I saw credit card statements showing charges for restaurants I've never been to, gifts I've never received, and a jewelry store purchase that resulted in a necklace I've never seen you wear. Her hand went unconsciously to her throat, but the necklace wasn't there today. Interesting. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. She stood up and moved to the window, her back to me. This was a calculated move. She knew the afternoon light would silhouette her figure through the thin dress. A year ago, it might have worked. Gavin doesn't mean anything to me, she said finally. It was just... I felt neglected, Michael. You work such long hours, and when you are home, you're always thinking about your cases or your clients. I needed someone who made me feel special. So you chose a married man. I chose someone who paid attention to me. I let the silence stretch, watching her reflection in the window glass. She was fidgeting now, her composure cracking. What do you want from me, Olivia? She turned around, and I saw tears in her eyes. Real ones, unless she'd gotten much better at acting. I want my husband back. I want us to go to counseling, work through our problems, maybe take that trip to Italy we've been talking about. The trip you've been talking about. I never wanted to go to Italy. See? This is what I mean. You never want to do anything I suggest. You never compromise. I compromised when you wanted to buy this house. I compromised when you wanted to quit your job at the bank to become a real estate agent. I compromised when you wanted to spend $15,000 redecorating the kitchen. What I won't compromise on is adultery. The tears started flowing freely now. It was a mistake, Michael. A terrible mistake. But people make mistakes. Marriage is about forgiveness. Marriage is about trust, and you destroyed that. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and felt my pulse quicken. Dylan. Package delivered. Check your email. I need to use the bathroom, I said, standing up. Michael, please, can we just... Give me 5 minutes. I went upstairs to my home office and opened my laptop. Dylan's email contained a single attachment, an audio file recorded 20 minutes earlier. I plugged in my headphones and hit play. Olivia's voice, clear as crystal. He knows about us, Gavin. He knows about the hotels, the money, everything. A man's voice, arrogant and nasal. How much does he know? Enough to destroy us both. You have to end this with Rebecca and leave town. We can start over somewhere else. I'm not leaving. My business is here. My connections are here. Besides, what's some accountant going to do? Sue me? You don't understand. Michael isn't just some accountant. He's forensic. He finds things people don't want found and he destroys them with it. We need to be smart about this. We need to be aggressive. If he wants a fight, I'll give him one. I have friends in high places, Olivia. I can make his life very difficult. And what about Rebecca? What about her? She'll never leave me. Too much family money at stake. You're underestimating both of them. And you're overestimating your husband. Trust me. By the time I'm done with Michael Peterson, he'll be begging us to take everything and disappear. I stopped the recording and sat back in my chair, processing what I'd just heard. Gavin Cross wasn't just an entitled adulterer, he was a dangerous one. He thought his family connections made him untouchable, and he was planning to use them against me. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was underestimating how much I enjoyed proving people wrong. I forwarded the audio file to my lawyer with a note. Evidence of conspiracy and intimidation. Please advise on legal options. Then I sent a copy to Dylan with a different note. Game on. When I returned to the living room, Olivia was pacing by the fireplace. Her phone was in her hand, and I could see she'd been texting someone, probably Gavin, updating him on how the conversation was going. Feel better? She asked. Much. I've been thinking about what you said, and you're right. Marriage is about forgiveness. Her face brightened with hope. Does that mean? It means I forgive you for lying to me, stealing from me, and betraying our marriage. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means I'm not going to let your choices destroy me. The hope faded in her eyes, replaced by something harder. What does that mean? It means I'm moving forward with the divorce. Jake will have the papers ready tomorrow morning, and I'll be serving you by noon. Michael, please. It also means I'm freezing our joint accounts, canceling the credit cards, and having the locks changed on this house. She stared at me in shock. You can't do that. Actually, I can. The house is in my name, the accounts are joint, which means I have full access, and the credit cards are tied to my credit rating. Legally, I have every right to protect my assets during divorce proceedings. Where am I supposed to live? How am I supposed to pay for things? That's between you and Gavin. I'm sure he'll be happy to help, assuming his wife doesn't find out about your affair first. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't. I wouldn't what? Tell Rebecca Cross that her husband is cheating on her with my wife, that he's using company funds to pay for hotel rooms, that he's been lying to her for months while planning to leave her for another woman. He's not leaving her for me. The words slipped out before she could stop them, and I saw the exact moment she realized her mistake. She'd just confirmed that Gavin had no intention of ending his marriage, which meant he'd been lying to her too. Interesting, I said. So he's using you for closeness, while planning to stay married to his wife. That must be disappointing. She sank onto the sofa, her carefully constructed facade finally crumbling. You don't understand. It's complicated. It's not complicated at all. You wanted excitement. He wanted a mistress, and neither of you cared who got hurt in the process. Now you're both going to learn that actions have consequences. I moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Olivia. I'd suggest you find somewhere else to stay tonight. The locks will be changed by 6. Michael, wait. We can work this out. I'll end things with Gavin. We can go to counseling, start fresh. You should have thought of that before you decided to throw away our marriage at my parents' dinner table. I left her there, crying on the sofa in the house she'd redecorated with money she'd stolen from our joint account. As I drove away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, complete clarity about what came next. My phone rang as I pulled into the parking lot of my office building. Dylan. Did you listen to the recording? Every word. Gavin Cross just made this personal. Good, because I have some news that's going to make this very interesting. Rebecca Cross filed for legal separation this morning. I sat up straighter. What? Apparently someone sent her copies of her husband's hotel receipts and credit card statements, along with photos of him entering the Regency with your wife. Someone? Anonymous tip. Very thorough, very well documented. Mrs. Cross is meeting with her lawyer this afternoon to discuss divorce proceedings. I smiled, feeling a surge of satisfaction. That's unfortunate for Gavin. Gets better. Mrs. Cross also forwarded the evidence to her father's office. Senator Cross is reportedly very interested in his son-in-law's creative accounting methods. How interested? Interested enough to request a full audit of Cross Investments. Federal audit. I laughed out loud. Dylan, you're an artist. I'm just getting started. By the time we're done with Gavin Cross, he's going to wish he'd never heard your wife's name. As I hung up the phone, I realized that for the first time in months, I was looking forward to tomorrow. Olivia and Gavin had started this war, but I was going to finish it. And I was very good at finishing things. The Lakeside Country Club's monthly mixer was the kind of event Olivia lived for, a chance to network with potential clients while showing off her latest designer outfit. She'd been attending these gatherings for 3 years, ever since she'd convinced me that joining the club would be good for both our careers. I'd always found them tedious, but tonight I was genuinely looking forward to it. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best navy suit and the confidence that comes from holding all the cards. The club's main dining room was buzzing with conversation, the usual mix of lawyers, doctors, business owners, and their perfectly groomed spouses. I spotted Olivia immediately. She was standing near the bar with Tammy Lowe, her closest friend and fellow real estate agent, both of them laughing at something on Tammy's phone. Gavin was there too, holding court near the windows that overlooked the lake. He was surrounded by his usual crowd of admirers, men who were impressed by his expensive clothes and women who were charmed by his practiced smile. He hadn't seen me yet, which was perfect. "Michael!" I turned to see Rebecca Cross approaching, looking elegant in a simple black dress. She was smaller than I'd expected, with short blonde hair and intelligent blue eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. More importantly, she was alone. "Mrs. Cross, I don't think we've been formally introduced. Michael Peterson." "Rebecca, please, and I know who you are. I was hoping I might run into you tonight." "Oh?" She glanced around, making sure we weren't being overheard. "I received some information recently about my husband and your wife. I wanted to thank you." "I'm not sure what you mean." She smiled sadly. "Of course you don't. But whoever sent me those hotel receipts and photographs did me a tremendous favor. I've been suspecting something for months, but I didn't have proof. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. I'm not. Better to know the truth than live with suspicion." She paused, studying my face. "How are you holding up?" "Better than expected, actually. It turns out, betrayal is liberating in its own way." "Yes, it is. It clarifies things, doesn't it? Shows you what really matters." Before I could respond, Gavin appeared at Rebecca's elbow, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. "Rebecca, there you are. I've been looking for you." "Have you?" Her voice was cool, professional. How unusual. Gavin's eyes shifted to me, and I saw recognition dawn. "Michael Peterson, I don't think we've met." "No, but I feel like I know you quite well." I extended my hand with a smile. Thank you for taking such an interest in my wife's assets. The words hit him like a physical blow. His face went white, then red, then an interesting shade of purple. Rebecca stepped back slightly, clearly preparing for whatever was about to happen. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You've been having an affair with my wife for the past 3 months, using your company credit card to pay for hotel rooms and lying to both our spouses about your whereabouts. Would you like me to be more specific? The conversations around us began to fade as people picked up on the tension. Gavin looked around desperately, realizing we were attracting attention. This is neither the time nor the place. Actually, this is the perfect time and place. Public venues have a way of keeping people honest. I pulled out my phone and opened the audio recording app. Would you like to hear what you said about Rebecca yesterday? Something about her never leaving you because there's too much family money at stake? Rebecca's sharp intake of breath was audible. Gavin's face went from purple to gray. You're recording me? I'm protecting myself. You threatened to use your connections to destroy me, remember? I thought it would be wise to document that. By now, we had drawn a small crowd. I recognized several faces, clients, colleagues, social acquaintances, exactly the audience I'd been hoping for. Gavin tried to salvage the situation. This is all a misunderstanding. Your wife and I are just friends. Friends who meet at the Regency Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday. Friends who exchange texts about being together properly. Friends who plan to start over in another city. Each revelation hit the crowd like a small explosion. I could see phones being discreetly pulled out, social media posts being composed in real time. By morning, this conversation would be all over town. Gavin, Rebecca said quietly, I think we should go. Yes, I agreed. You should. But first, I have something that belongs to you. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out his BMW key fob, the one I'd taken from Olivia's purse the night before. You left this at my house. I assume you'll want it back for your drive home. Gavin snatched the keys from my hand, his movements jerky with rage and embarrassment. This isn't over. Actually, it is. Your wife has filed for separation, your father-in-law has ordered an audit of your company, and your affair partner is about to be served with divorce papers. I'd say it's very much over. Rebecca touched my arm gently. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. As they walked away, separately, I noticed, the crowd began to disperse, but the damage was done. Within minutes, I was approached by no fewer than 6 people, all wanting to know more details. I deflected politely, but the seed was planted. By tomorrow, everyone in our social circle would know that Gavin Cross was a cheating husband and Olivia Peterson was a marriage-wrecking adulteress. Michael? I turned to find Tammy Lowe standing behind me, her face pale with shock. Is it true? About Olivia and Gavin? What did Olivia tell you? She said you were having problems, but she never mentioned... I had no idea. Tammy was genuinely distressed, which surprised me. I'd always assumed she knew about the affair, maybe even encouraged it. Olivia told Tammy everything, or so I'd thought. How long have you known? She asked. A few weeks. I hired a private investigator to confirm what I suspected. Oh God. Michael, I'm so sorry. If I had known, I would have told you immediately. You have to believe that. I did believe her. Tammy might be a gossip, but she wasn't cruel, and the horror on her face was too genuine to be fake. It's not your fault, Tammy. But I'm her best friend. I should have seen the signs, should have stopped her from making such a terrible mistake. Some mistakes can't be stopped. They can only be survived. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. What happens now? Now Olivia faces the consequences of her choices, and so does Gavin. She's going to be devastated when she realizes what she's lost. She should have thought of that before she threw it away. As I left the club, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The public humiliation was just the beginning. Olivia and Gavin's reputations were now in ruins, their social standing destroyed. But more importantly, I'd sent a message to anyone who might be tempted to underestimate me in the future. I was not a victim. I was not someone who could be discarded and forgotten. I was someone who fought back, and I fought to win. My phone buzzed with a text from Dylan. Heard about the fireworks at the club? Phase 2 complete? I typed back, Phase 2 complete. Ready for Phase 3. Good, because I have some interesting news about Cross Investments. Turns out Gavin's been very creative with his expense reports. How creative? Creative enough to interest the IRS. They'll be paying him a visit tomorrow morning. I smiled as I got into my car. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day for Gavin Cross, and an even more interesting day for my soon-to-be ex-wife. After all, she'd wanted excitement in her life. I was just making sure she got more than she'd bargained for. The next morning brought the kind of crisp October weather that made Maine famous. Clear skies, brilliant foliage, and air so clean it almost hurt to breathe. I was having coffee on my back deck, enjoying the peace of my newly Olivia-free house, when Dylan called. "Turn on Channel 8 News," he said without preamble. I grabbed the remote and switched to the local morning show. The anchor was discussing a breaking story about federal investigators visiting Cross Investments, complete with footage of serious-looking people in dark suits carrying boxes of documents out of Gavin's downtown office. "When did this happen?" I asked. "About an hour ago. Turns out the IRS moves fast when a senator's daughter provides them with evidence of tax fraud." I watched as the camera panned across the building, showing Gavin's BMW parked at an odd angle, as if he'd arrived in a hurry. "Is he in there?" "He was. Left about 20 minutes ago looking like he'd seen a ghost. Word is they seized his computers, financial records, client files, everything." "What about the hotel expenses?" "That's the beautiful part. Gavin's been writing off his affair as client entertainment for months. Problem is, the clients he claimed to be entertaining don't exist. He created fake companies to justify the expenses." I nearly choked on my coffee. "He committed tax fraud to cover up his adultery?" "Gets better. Remember that BMW he's so proud of? Company car, fully deductible as a business expense, except he's been using it exclusively for personal use, including driving to his secret rendezvous with your wife. How much trouble is he in? The kind that requires a very expensive lawyer and possibly a good relationship with God." As I hung up, I felt a surge of satisfaction so intense it was almost physical. Gavin Cross had thought his family connections made him untouchable, but he'd forgotten that the IRS doesn't care about your last name when you owe them money. My phone rang again. This time it was Jake Morrison, my lawyer. "Michael, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Olivia's attorney contacted me this morning. She's claiming you've been financially abusive, that you've cut off her access to money and credit cards without warning, leaving her unable to support herself." I frowned. "She has access to her own bank account and her real estate commissions." "About that. Apparently she hasn't had a commission in 6 weeks. Her sales have dried up completely. That's not my fault." "No, but it complicates things. Her lawyer is arguing that you've trapped her in an abusive situation and they're asking for emergency spousal support." "How much?" $15,000 a month. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate care. $15,000? Plus legal fees and living expenses. They're claiming she needs to maintain her lifestyle during the divorce proceedings. The lifestyle she was funding by stealing from our joint account? That's going to be hard to prove. The withdrawals look legitimate on paper. I was quiet for a moment, thinking. Olivia was playing victim, trying to paint me as the villain in our divorce. It was a smart strategy, but it had one fatal flaw. She didn't know I had recordings of her conversations with Gavin. Jake, can you stall them for a day or two? Tell them we need time to review our finances. I can try. But Michael, if they file for emergency support, we'll have to respond quickly. Don't worry. I have some evidence that might change their perspective. After hanging up, I called Dylan. I need you to prepare a comprehensive report on Olivia's activities over the past 3 months. Financial records, hotel receipts, phone records, everything. Planning to fight fire with fire? Planning to fight lies with truth. If Olivia wants to play victim, she's going to learn that victims don't usually have secret bank accounts and married lovers. I'll have everything ready by this afternoon. I spent the rest of the morning at my office, trying to focus on client work, but finding my mind wandering to the chess game my life had become. Olivia had made her move, claiming abuse and demanding support, but she'd forgotten that I was several moves ahead. Around noon, Tammy Lowe appeared at my office door. She looked terrible. Red eyes, disheveled hair, the kind of exhaustion that comes from crying all night. Michael, can I talk to you? Of course. Come in. She sat down across from my desk, clutching a tissue in her trembling hands. I need to tell you something about Olivia. Something I should have told you weeks ago. I waited, giving her time to gather her courage. She's been lying to me too, Tammy said finally. About the affair, about you, about everything. What do you mean? She told me you were emotionally distant, that you never paid attention to her, that you were probably having an affair yourself. She made it sound like she was the victim of a bad marriage. But I've known you both for 3 years, Michael. I've seen how you look at her, how you remember the little things she likes, how you support her career even when it means sacrificing your own time. You're not emotionally distant. You're one of the most devoted husbands I know. Tears started flowing again. She's been using me, hasn't she? Using our friendship to justify what she was doing with Gavin. What else did she tell you? That Gavin was going to leave his wife for her, that they were planning to move to California together, start fresh. She said you'd be better off without her anyway, that you'd probably be relieved when she left. I felt a familiar anger building in my chest. Olivia hadn't just betrayed our marriage, she'd been poisoning our mutual friendships, rewriting history to make herself the victim and me, the villain. Tammy, did Olivia ever ask you to lie for her? Provide alibis, cover stories? She nodded miserably. She said she was taking evening real estate classes, but she was really meeting Gavin. I thought I was helping her improve her career. What about the money? Did she ever mention financial problems? She said you were controlling about money, that you questioned every purchase she made. But Michael, I've seen your bank statements when we went shopping together. You never questioned anything. You just paid for whatever she wanted. This was better than I'd hoped. Tammy wasn't just contradicting Olivia's victim narrative. She was providing evidence that Olivia had been planning this deception for months. Tammy, would you be willing to make a statement about these conversations, for the divorce proceedings? She looked frightened. Olivia's my best friend. I don't want to hurt her. She's already hurt herself, and she's trying to hurt me in the process. I'm just asking you to tell the truth. What kind of statement? Just a sworn affidavit detailing what Olivia told you about our marriage, her affair, and her plans with Gavin. Nothing more than the truth. She was quiet for a long moment, wrestling with her conscience. Finally, she nodded. She lied to me, Michael. She made me complicit in her affair without my knowledge. I can't let her do the same thing to you. Thank you. After Tammy left, I called Jake Morrison. The emergency support hearing? I want to move it up. Tomorrow, if possible. Tomorrow? Michael, that doesn't give us much time to prepare. We don't need time. We need momentum. Olivia thinks she's controlling the narrative, but she's about to learn that the truth has a way of destroying even the most carefully constructed lies. What aren't you telling me? That by tomorrow afternoon, Olivia Peterson is going to wish she'd never heard the words emergency spousal support. As I hung up the phone, I realized I was actually looking forward to the hearing. For months, I'd been reacting to Olivia's deceptions, trying to process her betrayals, struggling to understand how our marriage had fallen apart. But now I was done reacting. Now I was acting, and I was very good at it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Rebecca Cross. Could we meet for coffee? I have information you might find useful." I typed back immediately. "When and where?" "Murphy's Diner. 1 hour." Perfect. It seemed like everyone was finally ready to tell the truth about Olivia and Gavin. And tomorrow, a judge was going to hear every word of it. Rebecca Cross was waiting in the same booth where Dylan and I had planned our campaign of revenge just days earlier. She looked composed but tired, wearing a simple gray suit that suggested she'd come straight from a business meeting. There was a manila folder on the table beside her coffee cup. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as I sat down. "Thank you for reaching out. How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected. It's amazing how liberating the truth can be, even when it's painful." She gestured to the folder. "I have something that might interest you. Information about your wife and my husband that goes deeper than just the affair." I felt a familiar tingle of anticipation. What kind of information? The kind that suggests this wasn't a simple case of adultery. I think they've been planning something together, something that would have left both of us in very difficult positions. She opened the folder and spread out several documents: bank statements, real estate contracts, and what appeared to be a business plan. After I filed for separation, I had my lawyer conduct a thorough review of our joint assets. We found some interesting discrepancies. I studied the papers, my trained eye immediately picking up on the irregularities. These withdrawals from Gavin's personal account, they correspond exactly with the deposits in Olivia's secret savings account. $53,000 over the past 4 months, all transferred in small amounts to avoid detection. He was funding her? It gets worse. Look at this. She handed me a real estate contract dated 3 weeks earlier. It was for a condo in San Diego, purchased under the names Gavin Cross and Olivia Peterson. They bought property together? With money from our joint account and yours. The down payment was $60,000, $37,000 from your wife's secret account, $23,000 from funds Gavin embezzled from his company. I stared at the contract, feeling pieces of the puzzle click into place. They were planning to disappear together. After the divorces were finalized, Gavin was going to claim business losses to minimize his settlement with me, and Olivia was going to claim abuse to maximize hers with you. Then they'd use the money to start fresh in California. The scope of their deception was breathtaking. This wasn't just an affair, it was a carefully orchestrated financial fraud designed to destroy 2 marriages and steal as much money as possible in the process. "How did you find all this?" Rebecca smiled grimly. "My father didn't just order an audit of Cross Investments. He ordered a complete forensic investigation of Gavin's finances. When you have the resources of a U.S. Senate office behind you, you can uncover quite a lot. And you're sharing this with me because you deserve to know what you're really fighting. And because I want to make sure both of them face consequences for what they've done." I photographed every document with my phone, my mind already racing ahead to how this evidence would play in tomorrow's hearing. Olivia's claim of financial abuse was about to become a lot more complicated. "Rebecca, would you be willing to testify about this? In my divorce proceedings?" "I'd be honored to. Gavin destroyed our marriage for money, Michael. I want to make sure he doesn't profit from it." After she left, I called Dylan with the news. His reaction was everything I'd hoped for. "Jesus Christ, Michael. They weren't just having an affair, they were running a con game." "Can we prove it?" "With Rebecca's evidence?" "Absolutely. The paper trail is ironclad." "What about the criminal implications?" "Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy. Gavin's looking at serious jail time, and Olivia's going to be charged as an accessory." I felt a surge of satisfaction so intense it was almost overwhelming. For months, I'd thought I was dealing with a simple case of marital infidelity. But Olivia and Gavin had been playing a much more dangerous game, and they'd severely underestimated their opponents. Dylan, I need you to prepare a comprehensive presentation for tomorrow's hearing. Everything we've discovered, organized chronologically, with supporting documentation. Already working on it. This is going to be beautiful, Michael. Absolutely beautiful. That evening, I sat in my home office, reviewing all the evidence we'd gathered. The secret bank accounts, the hotel receipts, the audio recordings, the real estate fraud. It painted a picture of deception so complete that I almost felt sorry for Olivia. Almost. My phone rang. Jake Morrison. Michael, I just got off the phone with Olivia's attorney. They want to settle. Settle? They're withdrawing the request for emergency support and offering to accept a 50-50 split of assets in exchange for a quick, quiet divorce. What changed their minds? I may have mentioned that we'd uncovered some irregularities in the financial records. Nothing specific, just enough to make them nervous. What did you tell them? That we'd see them in court tomorrow. Good. Because I want Olivia to hear every word of what we've discovered. I want her to understand exactly how thoroughly she's been exposed. Michael, are you sure about this? A settlement would be faster, cleaner. Jake, my wife didn't just cheat on me. She conspired to defraud me, planned to abandon our marriage for money, and tried to paint me as an abuser to cover her tracks. I'm not interested in fast or clean. I'm interested in justice. All right, but this is going to get ugly. It's already ugly. Tomorrow we're just going to make it public. The next morning dawned gray and cold, the kind of weather that matched my mood perfectly. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the tie Olivia had bought me for our anniversary, the watch my father had given me when I passed the CPA exam. I wanted to look like exactly what I was, a successful, stable man who'd been systematically betrayed by people he trusted. The courthouse was busy with the usual mix of lawyers, defendants, and family members dealing with life's messier moments. I found Jake waiting outside the family court division, looking confident but tense. Ready for this? He asked. I've been ready for weeks. Olivia arrived with her attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Wells who specialized in high-conflict divorces. Olivia looked terrible, pale, thin, wearing a conservative black suit that was probably meant to make her look sympathetic. She avoided eye contact, which told me she knew this wasn't going to go well. Gavin wasn't there, which wasn't surprising. According to Dylan's sources, he was meeting with federal investigators about the embezzlement charges. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Manning. Judge Manning was a stern-looking woman in her 50s with graying hair and the kind of no-nonsense expression that suggested she'd seen every type of human drama imaginable. She reviewed the case file briefly, then looked up at both parties. This is a hearing for emergency spousal support in the matter of Peterson versus Peterson. Mrs. Peterson, you're claiming financial abuse and requesting immediate support? Patricia Wells stood up. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Peterson has been cut off from all financial resources by her husband, leaving her unable to support herself during these proceedings. Mr. Peterson, how do you respond? Jake rose. Your Honor, we deny the allegations of financial abuse. In fact, we have evidence that Mrs. Peterson has been systematically defrauding the marital estate through secret accounts and unauthorized transfers. Judge Manning raised an eyebrow. That's a serious accusation. Do you have documentation? Extensive documentation, Your Honor. For the next hour, Jake methodically presented our evidence: the secret bank account, the embezzled funds from Gavin, the real estate purchase in San Diego, the audio recordings of Olivia and Gavin planning their escape. Each revelation hit like a hammer blow, and I watched Olivia's face grow paler with each new piece of evidence. Patricia Wells tried to object, tried to redirect, tried to minimize the damage, but the evidence was overwhelming. When Jake finished his presentation, the courtroom was silent except for the sound of Olivia quietly crying. Judge Manning studied the documents for several minutes before speaking. Mrs. Peterson, these allegations are extremely serious. Do you wish to respond? Olivia looked at her attorney, who shook her head slightly. There was no defense for what we'd uncovered. No, Your Honor. Very well. Based on the evidence presented, I'm not only denying the request for emergency spousal support, I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all assets pending a full investigation of potential fraud. Mrs. Peterson, you should be aware that I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges. Olivia's sob was audible throughout the courtroom. Furthermore, Judge Manning continued, I'm granting Mr. Peterson's request for exclusive use of the marital home and vehicles pending resolution of these proceedings. Mrs. Peterson, you have 24 hours to remove your personal belongings. As we left the courthouse, I felt a sense of completion that I hadn't experienced in months. Olivia's plan had been exposed, her lies unraveled, her future destroyed by her own choices. She'd wanted excitement, adventure, a chance to start over with someone else's money. Instead, she was facing criminal charges and financial ruin. Patricia Wells caught up with me in the parking lot. Mr. Peterson, my client would like to discuss a settlement. I'm listening. She's willing to waive all claims to marital assets in exchange for your agreement not to pursue criminal charges. I considered this for a moment. Olivia was offering to walk away with nothing, no money, no property, no support, just to avoid going to prison. Tell your client that ship has sailed. The criminal charges aren't mine to pursue, they're the state's. And after what she's done, she's lucky I'm not suing her for fraud myself. As I drove home, I reflected on how completely the tables had turned. 3 weeks ago, Olivia had thrown our marriage away at my parents' dinner table, confident that she held all the cards. Now she was facing criminal charges while I was going home to a house that was finally, truly mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Dylan. Gavin Cross arrested this morning. Federal fraud charges. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled, feeling the last piece of the puzzle click into place. Gavin's arrogance had been his downfall. He'd thought his family connections would protect him, but he'd forgotten that federal crimes don't care about your last name. That evening, I sat on my back deck with a glass of wine, watching the sun set over the lake. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. The war was over, and I'd won more completely than I'd ever imagined possible. My phone rang one last time. It was my father. Son, I heard about the hearing today. How are you feeling? Satisfied, I said. Very satisfied. And Olivia? Olivia is learning that there's a big difference between being clever and being smart. She was clever enough to plan an elaborate fraud, but not smart enough to realize she was stealing from a forensic accountant. My father chuckled. I taught you well. You taught me that actions have consequences. Olivia and Gavin are about to learn that lesson very thoroughly. As I hung up the phone, I realized that this whole experience had taught me something important about myself. I wasn't just someone who could survive betrayal. I was someone who could turn it into victory. Olivia had wanted everything, but she'd never realized that sometimes the bill comes due, and I'd made sure it was paid in full.